Evening. I would like to call to order the August 13 Lake Washington School Board meeting. So the first thing I'd like to do is entertain a motion to approve the August 13th agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director La Liberty that we approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So our first line of business this evening is to provide the oath of office to our superintendent, Dr. Jane Stavum. Prior to doing so, I would like to just take an opportunity to introduce a little bit about Dr. Jane Stavum. She is a skilled education leader with 28 years of experience in public education, and on August 1st, 2018, she became Lake Washington School District's 12th superintendent. Dr. Stavum started her career in St. Paul, Minnesota, where she taught K-6 music, 5th and 6th grades, gifted education, and served as the building's curriculum coordinator. In 2001, she returned to Nebraska and assumed the roles of elementary school principal and executive director of curriculum and instruction for Columbus Public Schools and superintendent of Blair Community Schools in Blair, Nebraska. Her last 6 years have been with the Lincoln Public Schools, and there she served as the Associate Superintendent for Instruction, overseeing 9 departments, a $350 million budget, and supporting a rapidly growing district of 41,000 students in the capital city of Nebraska. During her tenure, Lincoln Public Schools launched a new career academy in partnership with local businesses and a community college, and a 3-year technology integration plan providing a one-to-one environment for students in grades 3 to 12, and numerous collaborative partnerships supporting innovative teaching and learning initiatives. She was also instrumental in redesigning 3 alternative schools to more effectively serve students in pre-K 12 with significant behavior needs. In addition, on top of all those items, she is a published author in the area of student mobility and the impacts on students. She was recently named as one of Lincoln's inspiring women and is a frequent speaker and presenter at local and national conferences. So on behalf of the board, I would like to welcome Dr. Stavum to Lake Washington School District. We look forward to working with you in the years ahead to accomplish our mission of every student future ready. So with that, I'd like to proceed for the oath of office. So I will ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jane Stavum, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of Superintendent, Lake Washington School District number 414.
Of Lake Washington School District number 414.
As prescribed by law,
As prescribed by law.
and to the best of my ability,
And to the best of my ability.
that I will support
That I will support
and maintain the Constitution of the State of Washington
and maintain the Constitution of the State of Washington
and the United States.
and the United States. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So our next step is public comment. So on a monthly basis, the Board of Directors provides an opportunity for public comment during board meetings. Do we have anybody here for public comment before I go through? Okay, then at that point, I'm just going to say thank you and we will just move on. Is there anybody in the audience who did not sign up who would like to do a public comment? Okay. So we will now move to the consent agenda. So on the consent agenda, I will now entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director Sage. Jane, will you now poll the board?
Will.
Yes.
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Siri?
Yes. And Dr. Staven, will you please summarize the donations that we've received?
I will read the list of donations. We have from Gifted Education Advisory Council to Lake Washington School District, $1,125 to support the Quest program. The Usborne Books and More to John Muir Elementary in the amount of $1,200 to support the library. John Muir Elementary PTSA to Muir Elementary in the amount of $5,382.11 to provide stipend for choir at the amount of $1,300 and support academic enrichment for $4,082.11. Rosa Parks PTSA to Rosa Parks Elementary in the amount of $1,957.50 to support field trips. Juanita High School PTSA to Juanita High School in the amount of $1,250 to support the art program. Juanita Rebels Booster Club to Juanita High School in the amount of $9,607.50 to purchase track uniforms for the amount of $6,607.50 and to support drama programs with the amount of $3,000. Lake Washington High School Baseball Booster Club to Lake Washington High School for $1,948.57 to purchase athletic equipment. And finally, Lake Washington High School PTSA to Lake Washington High School in the amount of $1,984.24 to purchase classroom supplies for $678.24 and to support classroom enrichment in the amount of $1,306 for total donations of $24,454.92. Of course, we are very appreciative of all of those donations and the benefits to students.
Thank you. And we would like to personally thank everyone who has chosen to support our students and schools. Our next item is on the non-consent agenda and is the extension of the 2017-18 general fund budget. At this time, I will open the public hearing for the extension of the 2017-18 general fund budget. State statutes require the board to hold a public hearing on the extension of budgets and to adopt the revised budgets by resolution. If you wish to speak on the extension of the 17-18 general fund budget, please step to the center podium, and each individual is provided up to 3 minutes to speak. Seeing no one coming to speak for the public hearing. Do I have to ask it repeated times?
Repeated times?
More than once?
No, I
Okay.
believe so.
All right. The public hearing is now closed. Is there any board discussion in regards to the general fund budget extension? Director Carlson?
Well, sorry, the situation recommendation is to increase by $5 million. And I actually don't have any questions. I just want to call out explicitly for the public what the rationale is behind that. That with additional revenues and expenditures for special ed, high-cost safety net, and grants and donations during the budget year, we might go above, and we actually have to extend it now before we go above that. Otherwise, we can't spend the money, right?
Correct. We
Okay.
are required to do a budget extension prior to expending any dollars. And so the good news is, again, we received additional revenue in our high-cost safety net to offset planned expenditures, and we also are anticipating additional revenues and grants and donations. So we want to, the extension is really to just ensure that we have the capacity to spend those revenues once we receive them.
So I have no concerns with that purpose for the extension.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, with that, I will now entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2255, increasing the 2017-18 general fund appropriation amount from $355 million to $360 million, with a lot of extra numbers there.
Move adoption of the resolution as stated.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and directed by Director La Liberty. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So our next item on the agenda is the adoption of the 2018-19 budget. Will we be having a presentation on the budget, or?
We do not typically have a presentation. We gave the presentation of the budget on June 25th, so I can,
You would just have the hearing.
So I will go ahead and do
So
the hearing,
go
and
ahead
then
and do the hearing, and then I do have some words-
additional items.
Some just additional comments after that.
Perfect.
Okay.
So at this time, I will open the public hearing for the adoption of the 2018-19 budget. Again, state statutes require the board to hold a public hearing on the budget and adopt the budget by resolution, which also establishes the tax levies necessary to support the general fund, the capital projects fund, and the debt service fund. If you wish to speak on the adoption of the budget, please step to the center podium, and each individual is provided up to 3 minutes to speak. Seeing no one coming to the podium to speak for public comment on the hearing, the public hearing is now closed. From here, I'm going to open this up to Barbara to provide some comments.
Great, thank you. So I just want to remind the board that the budget document that they are adopting is the F-195 version of the budget. We do have a more detailed, user-friendly version of the budget, and that's the budget I recommend the public looks at and provides very good information to the community about where our resources are spent. And so we developed the budget. The 2018-19 budget was developed by gathering input from schools and departments and working with our strategic advisory leadership team on developing priorities. We presented the draft budget to the board in detail and had our first reading on June 25th. We posted the budget on our website. Required ads regarding this public hearing were placed in our local papers, the Redmond, Kirkland, and Sammamish Reporters. Copies were made available to interested parties, and a place to email comments was provided. We did not receive any requests from the public for hard copies of the budget. We do know that the website received over 80 views on our website to view the budget document, and we did not receive any emails through public comment. So I want to thank those that participated in the budget process and thank the budget office staff for their hard work in putting this budget together for the 18-19 school year.
Thank you. So is there any board discussion in regards to the budget for 18-19?
No discussion. I just, again, want to echo the thank you for the hard work. Just assembling that F-195 is an extraordinary number of FTE hours expended to put together a budget. And as always, I very much appreciate the human readable version of it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Director La Liberty?
Yeah, I would just like to highlight of the human readable version. On page 24, it has the breakdown of how our money is spent by sector, I guess. And once again, as every other year, the vast majority of it is spent on total teaching, 77.9% this year. So again, I would just like to highlight that for the community, and that is on page 23 of, what did you call it?
24.
The human readable version.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments? I guess I would like to say thank you again for all the hard work. It is great to see how that aligns to the strategic plan. And going through, I know there was a lot of discussion around safety and security and the pieces that get put into there, and that is pulled out very well in the executive summary, sort of outlining those key components in regards to how those dollars are being spent that's coming in and how we're strategically reaching our goals going forward. So excellent work by staff in really being able to do so. I think our ends results are starting to show that impact of really solid future-thinking budgeting, of being very strategic in what's going forward. So it's great to see all those things to play out, especially with our intervention programs and the different components. So thank you very much for all that work, and it'll be great to be able to speak about the great things that are coming down the line. So with that, I will now entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2256, officially adopting the 2018-19 budget.
Move approval.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director La Liberty. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So the next agenda item is the review of, oh, thank you, Barbara. I should have sort of wrapped that up. I apologize. I appreciate all the work. So the last agenda item is the review of the monitoring reports. We are doing 3 this evening. Executive Limitation 9, District Staff. Executive Limitation 10, Budgeting, Financial Planning. And Executive Limitation 11, Financial Administration. As you all know, this is a part of our annual monitoring and the evaluation that we do through the process and going forward. So we have all received these reports prior, and if there were questions, to have sent those. So I am going to hand this over to Dr. Stavum to be able to walk through.
Yes, these are reports being presented tonight for review, and then they will be brought back for approval at the September 17th board meeting. There is no faster way for a brand-new superintendent to get acquainted with many different things than to start out by reading the ELs 9, 10, and 11. And so I did not receive any specific questions. What I can say is, in reading all of these, which of course are most reflective of this past year, things are in compliance. There are very good processes in place. All 3 of these reflect very important areas of a school district, and also provide me with a nice foundation in terms of, as we go forward, in looking if there are processes or elements of things that we may want to look at reviewing for improvements or for efficiencies, or all of those kinds of things that are continual processes of a school district. This helps me become very acquainted very quickly with the current processes in place. So I would just say things are in compliance. And if you have any other questions prior to the September 17th board meeting, please let me know. Otherwise, that would conclude my comments.
All right, is there any, we'll just start with EL 9, if there's any questions on the district staff one?
No disagreement.
Okay.
The incompliance, and this is an example of the ones where I appreciate the brevity of presentation when there isn't much controversy. Recruiting quality staff is important to us, but we don't need to flog a dead horse in public. We have other important stuff on the agenda. So thank you for continuing that.
Welcome.
Okay, so EL 9, district staff, no questions, no comments. EL 10, budget and finance. The only one thing I would ask on that going forward, not anything in regards to compliance, but in looking at hearing just the presentation this evening from Barbara and speaking to not having much feedback from our community on many different things, no one here for a public hearing, no email, I'd be interested to see, are there some strategies we could utilize going forward to be able to hold some strategic planning, budgeting concepts with our community? I'm not sure that's a piece of this at all, but just an action item to think for the future.
Certainly a process we can consider.
Anything else on EL 10? Okay, and then EL 11, financial administration. Seeing no discussion and hearing none, it looks like we are done and everybody's in agreement. So we can go ahead and put these onto the consent agenda at the next meeting. Yep, okay. So with that, we're going to move to the program reports. And with that, there are 2 for this evening, and I will hand those off to you to present.
Again, very good opportunities for me to learn about 2 of these specific areas that are being presented tonight. The first one that we are going to hear is about summer programs, and the second one that we will go through is the athletics and activities. I might have just said those out of order. We'll see who's up at the podium. Nope, we're correct. So Matt Montebianco and Mike Van Orden are going to start us off with a summer program review.
Well, thank you. As you recall, our program reports are an opportunity for us to provide you information about how we're getting to our end results and also to bridge that connection between end results and executive limitations. Some of the content you'll see as we present program reports is similar to what we've shared in the past. What we really want to highlight tonight and in all of our program reports is data and changes that reflect efforts and implementation of these programs and outcomes for kids. And so we'll highlight some of those tonight as we're walking through them. We also want to acknowledge a change that we made at Dr. Stavum's recommendation, I think a good one. We've asked our directors who oversee many of these programs to be here tonight for a number of reasons, one of which is so that you can put faces to names that you hear about as we acknowledge these folks when we're talking about their program areas. It's also an opportunity, sometimes there's a depth of understanding that our directors might have, and so if there is a question that comes up that's very specific, sometimes we can use them as a resource as well. So tonight we have a number of our directors here, and so I will just, we put them in alphabetical order so as not to call anyone out in particular. Karen Hay, our director of the Washington Network for Innovative Careers, is here in the middle front. Our new director of special services, Dr. Shannon Hitch, is here as well tonight, and then is off tomorrow morning early to work with her children at home. Kelly Pease, director of intervention services, is here as well. Dr. Pierce was not able to make it today. She was actually out of the office today. And Heather Sanchez, Director of Accelerated Programs, Choice and Innovation, is here as well. So again, an opportunity to see some of the folks who are working very directly and very effectively on these programs. And really, we want to acknowledge their efforts tonight as much as anything else. So I mentioned our program reports really are designed to give you an update on how we're working towards our end results and the connection between the end results and the executive limitations. And specifically, in our summer programs, we're talking about executive limitations related to our academic programs. So summer programs that we'll talk about tonight are our intervention programs and extended school year, and then Matt Monabianco will talk more specifically about WANIC and core academic summer school. The intervention programs, as I mentioned, are under Kelly Pease, and extended school year special services is under Dr. Shannon Hitch. So our intervention programs, as I mentioned, really are growing and are serving a need of students who need extra support academically, need extra support socially. They're an opportunity in that gap between school years to give some students that extra boost that they need to be successful. They really do serve a wide range of students in grades K through 12, and they are for students that we actually are very proactive in identifying during the school year as needing additional support. And then there are intentional outreach efforts to get students to that program. Those outreach efforts include communication. They also include removing obstacles. So for example, making sure that kids have transportation. And that transportation varies a little bit from program to program. In some cases, it might be students go to their home school and get transported to the summer intervention program. In some cases, it's direct service like they have during the school year. In some cases, it's the use of the ORCA card that we have for students who are attending Lake Washington. And then the programs run from 4 weeks, 5 days, 5 half days per week. So really they are intended to provide those services in that time where it would really benefit kids to have a bridge between school years. So at the elementary level, we have some wonderful programs. We have a K-3 literacy camp. That's to build those early foundational reading skills. We talked about this quite a bit last year, as those skills that are so essential for students to access academics in all content areas. And if you can get kids with really high quality literacy instruction in the early years, we know that has big dividends down the road. And so our K-3 literacy camp, we run at multiple schools. And as you can see, that's been growing. About 245 students this year for 2018. We pay for that with our learning assistance program and district dollars. And again, we see really amazing results in terms of how kids do in acquiring academic literacy skills. We also have a program for our EL students, our English language learners, paid for out of Title III. This year, we had 105 students served in that program. And again, part of that is not so much that we have students that are not doing as well in school, it's a part of it is the intentional outreach that our program's doing to get more kids who could benefit from services into the program. And as we've shared in our past presentations, our EL program results are significant and positive, and so this is one part of that overall program. And then our title program is for students at our 2 title schools, Muir and Frost Elementary. It's hosted at Muir Elementary, and that served this year 88 students, primarily in academic skills. You do notice that there is a reduction there. That was partly due to a reduction in funding, and so we are always looking at how do we supplement and support that and still serve students throughout the year, but that was the most significant impact in terms of programs that you see there.
So from a traditional qualifying for the program perspective, we would have had roughly the same number of kids, we just didn't have the budget?
I believe so. Is that correct, Kelly? About the same number of kids if we had the same budget as we had last year?
Yes, and we also picked up on some of those kids into the other programs.
Yeah, I was noticing the other 2 grow. Okay, thank you.
At the secondary level, we have a number of programs. As you know, that transition from elementary to middle school is a significant one for many students, both academically and socially. So we have an incoming 6th graders, incoming 6th grade prep program at Kamiakin, Redmond, Rose Hill. That's paid for out of Title I. It's about 50 to 60 students per year, and really, again, to focus on academic skills and also preparing kids to be successful in middle school. So if you can do those 2 things together, we know that kids can launch and have access and success with their programs. We also are trying a new program, a Bridge Academy, that's piloting some new curriculum that we may use in academic support throughout the year, particularly in literacy and math, and so that's something that in addition to serving kids in the summer, is giving us information that we can use during the school year and interventions. And then we also have our EL program for level 1 and level 2 students at the secondary level. And we've talked about the distinction between a student who's learning language in the early years versus the secondary years and the difference there. Again, serving a very specific need in our system for our secondary EL students. The other, again, when I was sharing at the beginning, something we're very proud of and a highlight in terms of outcomes for our kids in our district is our credit recovery. We shared some information on this the past few years. This is an opportunity for kids who have failed a course in high school and then become what we call credit deficient and who are maybe not on track to graduation, an opportunity to regain those credits through a blended learning model of online and teacher-driven curriculum. And so we started out relatively small, got the program running, and then Kelly and her team have been doing significant efforts not only to build the program in terms of curriculum and teacher capacity, but also to explore how do you serve the needs of many kids across the system. So maybe having multiple students assigned in multiple subject areas to a teacher who can oversee the blended curriculum, or adjusting schedules and kind of working around some of the traditional barriers that keep kids from succeeding or from passing classes. So we've expanded the number of courses, and we have more students accessing these courses. In addition, you see up there that there may be, in some cases, students can actually take 2 courses. So there might be an opportunity to take an algebra and an English 9, or an algebra and an English 10. So overall, we're seeing not only a growth in terms of the number of students who are accessing, but the number of students who are recovering credits. So currently, as of today, about 120 credits have been recovered for our students who participated in this program, and we still have about 32 students who are in the program who are still kind of finalizing, I think today, or no, today's the 13th, in about a week and a half, who will potentially recover some more. So pretty significant gains. This puts kids back on track to be ready for graduation. And as we know, we saw in our summer graduation program the other night, I'm pretty sure just about every student who was there mentioned being connected to this credit recovery and how that was one of the factors that got them across that line.
In terms of, so last year I remember seeing this, but now I'm seeing the growth of the program. How close are we to covering, I mean, how many kids need credit recovery potentially in total relative to how many are in here?
Yeah, so I don't have a specific number, but what I can say is that You need to have different types of credit recovery for different students. Some students have the ability to do online courses, have some level of independence with a teacher working side by side with them. Some students actually need to be in the building during the school year. So this summer credit recovery includes a little bit of independence, and so there are more students who need credit recovery than what you see reflected here, and we would capture those with different types of programs.
Okay, thanks.
Mike, so the column of credits, column of credits recovered, that should be closer perhaps to the students taking the course after the 23rd. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there should be. So right now, there's about 120 credits recovered, and we'd expect about 30 more credits that would be coming in after the 23rd.
Okay.
So about 150 credits. So if you think about those, a credit is a semester worth of coursework.
Really quick, is there a cost associated with this to the student?
We haven't charged for this program. So that's one of the, again, we're looking at how do you remove barriers to graduation, and so that was one of the barriers that we were able to address.
If I could, I had the opportunity this summer to go visit the credit recovery and be able to speak with the teachers and principals who are running it. It's a fabulous program. I mean, the staff are incredible in the way they really think about the kids, the whole idea of the blended learning, having multiple options. It really is a fairly, it's one of the best programs. I've attended a lot of workshops about credit recovery, and this was one where I was like, we should be advertising, because this really is impressive in the work that's being done. And I think these numbers really show that. And a lot of that really is the relationship that they had with those kids. They knew each and every one of them as they came through. So it was phenomenal. And at the summer graduation that it was clear that that was a huge high point that they were able to speak to, that gave them that opportunity to move on. So things like this, great kudos to staff to really coming up with something and working through multiple iterations to come through with something that really works well. So nicely done.
Yeah, to highlight the real difference, I think when we started, we saw this as put kids online, they take the class, everything's good. It's really a people effort, a people-driven effort. So staff who are checking in, folks on Kelly's team and Kelly herself who are always monitoring and making sure kids are on track, and it's not simply put a kid in front of a computer, it's that human touch that makes a difference. So you're right, definitely kudos there.
Mike, can we go back about, I think it's 3 slides back, where we had the drop-off
Oh, correct.
in the Title I
Yeah.
students, over half. Now, is the idea that some of those came in under other columns, or was
Yeah,
it
so
purely
some of-
transportation?
Some of those students were picked up through the K-3 summer literacy camp. Again, though, it was not all, probably, and so that would be something we need to keep an eye on.
And it was a matter of budget that we couldn't accommodate the
We
others?
had,
or-
well, it wasn't so much, we could accommodate, our budget for Title I was about half what it was the year before, and we
Okay.
made some adjustments. So Kelly was able, as I mentioned, to pull some of those students into other programs, and then will also be served in the schools during the school year through our safety net program.
Is there if there's a dollar amount that we could be informed of, that so we could perhaps go out and look at alternative ways of financing that, that'd be great. If we knew the dollar amount, then once you know that, then you can start doing the
Correct.
asking.
Correct, yeah.
I would just interject, that's one of the conversations we had, is we don't want services to students to be dependent upon a particular source of dollars that we know will begin to fluctuate probably even more than it has already. And so that's something we were going to look at budgetarily, and it sounds like the board is in support of that as well. But those moving targets of federal dollars and the timing for when you sometimes know what those allocations are going to be can sometimes make that difficult, so we will want to account for that. It's a good point, thank you.
It might even be a situation too where we could have some sort of a reserve fund type setup once we go forth and get other funding sources, that we don't spend them all on day one, but we have them in case the budget of the federal government goes fully again.
Thanks.
Thanks. So our other program that I'll speak to briefly is our extended school year. This is specifically in our special services and for students with individualized education programs. So there's 3 areas that we look at when we're thinking about extended school year. One is in that gap period between the end of the year and the start of the year, students might actually lose gains that they'd made over the course of the school year before, and so they would fall behind. And so you look at the potential that a student might lose some of that gain. The other recoupment is that a student might not lose something, but when there's a gap in time, when they come back to school, it takes them longer to kind of get back up to that point where they're making progress again. And so, again, you're identifying students who are potential, who might have a need for some programming during the summer so that there's not as long a kind of a launch or a ramp to the point at which they're starting to make progress again. And then the final area that teams would look at is that idea of critical learning stage. At different points during students' lives or different points in their development, they might be at that place where they're just about to make a breakthrough, and if they had some summer opportunities, they can make that breakthrough and continue making progress, as opposed to waiting for a month or 2 months before they're actually back. So those are the three primary areas that determine student placement in extended school year, and an individualized education program team would look at that, make an evaluation, and place students. So those numbers are fairly stable from year to year. In 2018, at the elementary level, preschool and elementary, we had 35 students that participated, and 29 students at the secondary. And yes, as last year, that's the 29 is the same number from year to year. We always look at that and go, I wonder how that is, and it's just chance. Sometimes you'll get the same number of students. Again, so those are students that meet those very specific requirements that I mentioned. In terms of the content, there's a mix of programs and services that are provided that really are targeted to functional academic instruction, speech, it might be occupational therapy or behavioral instruction, physical therapy, and they really are targeted to students' individualized IEP goals. There's also that opportunity for students and programs to develop social skills, and so at both programs we're offering friendship groups, and it's really time to help students connect with each other and to learn and practice social skills as well, so that in addition to getting the functional skills, academic skills, and some of the other needs met, there's an opportunity to interact and have positive relationships with peers.
Quick question. I'm sorry, back one. Again, these are the kids that are getting just the month in the middle, or these are the ones who are getting basically spring to fall without a gap?
Month in the middle in terms of?
Well, I think that most of the extended school year is you were talking about having some kids with the IEP that they can't have the regression.
Right.
So they have basically a spring to fall session. Are these numbers reflective of those folks, those kids in the spring to fall, or is this just the ones that were in the typical ESY that comes in the middle of the summer?
I think it's a combination of both, if I'm not mistaken. So you would evaluate a student to see if he was talking about the spring to fall, or that you would anticipate. So you actually have data that shows that, or you would anticipate over the summer based on past years or past summers. I
was trying to find out if there was a breakdown between the two.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's an equal distribution of students that would lose over the summer versus that spring to fall. Probably a combination of both.
Right.
We do have a group of students that are receiving services throughout the summer who might be in year-round educational programs due to the severity of it.
So, sorry, just on an operational side, we don't have mics in the entire thing, so the broadcast, anybody who watches this will hear our response, but they did not hear what you just said. So when we bring people in, let's just try and bring them to the mic when they
put them right up
are
here.
doing
Yeah.
something substantive.
Absolutely.
And I think that was important enough that maybe it would be worth doing at the center mic.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked about the difference in the numbers, the reason why I asked about the difference in the numbers is because I wanted to see if the students who are qualifying for that expanded full summer is fluctuating any appreciably.
As I was sharing, the students reflected in these numbers are the students that participated in our district program over the course of July, and they can be identified as qualifying for ESY services at any point in the school year, and it's an IEP team decision that determines their need. We do have a smaller group of students, about 20, that are not reflected in these numbers, that have a higher level of need, and they might be in residential programming or other types of more intensive services, and they will have a nonstop school year, basically.
So this is only the July figure then?
This is only the July.
Thank you, that's what I was missing.
Yeah.
Thank
There would additional number of 20 kids that would be including out of district.
Great to know. Thank you.
Do we know if that
Thank you.
20 fluctuates in? Much? I mean, because to me, we've had a steady increase in the need for more intensive services in special needs, and I didn't know if perhaps that was being reflected then also in the need for a complete summer program as opposed to just the July program. That's why I'm looking at.
That would be new learning for me. So I know
Okay.
I looked at it this year. I didn't have last year's data,
understand.
so that would be actually a great thing for us to be tracking.
Just a thought.
Yeah,
It'd
thank
be
you.
helpful.
Can I ask a quick question about the critical learning? If you're at the critical learning stage, that could happen at the very end of a school year.
Right.
And are we really looking at students to make sure that if we identify something farther, closer to summer, that we are able to get them into a program that
Fascinating, yeah.
may have not been identified in the bulk of the school year?
Absolutely. So those students can be having IEP meetings up to the very last day of school. And generally, you're able to plan your ESY programs and services in such a way that allows for those exceptions that tend to pop up at the end of the year to have space available for them. Yeah.
So if they
Okay,
have their
hang on.
IEP,
1 second. Dr. Stephen, I think, did you have something to say? Okay. Go ahead.
so if they had their IEP in March and all of a sudden the teacher or the family realizes in early June, late May, that this is really a critical stage, they could actually reopen things, or do they have to call a new IEP meeting for that?
They would need to have an IEP amendment meeting. You don't have to have a full new IEP, but you would come together as a formal IEP amendment process.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you
Yeah,
very
thank
much.
you.
Any other questions on this slide? Okay. Thank you. Go for it.
Thanks.
Well, as Mike said in the beginning, we really have the pleasure of doing the presentation parts, and it's the people who are sitting before you who are doing the work in the trenches, and it's truly because of them that this work is going on and proceeding and progressing. I mean that for all of them, all of the fine work of our directors. I'm going to be speaking to you about our Washington Network for Innovative Careers section, as well as our summer school regarding core academics. And it's really exciting tonight because a year ago, it was our president, Bleasner, who asked, when would we see the results of the program review? And I said from this microphone, next year. And we're going to show you what is different about this year as my teaser lead into this presentation. But let me start first with WANIC. WANIC is a pretty exciting opportunity for our students, in part because it really and truly ties so directly to our district vision when it comes to preparing every student for college, for the global workplace, for personal success. We say college means 2-year, 4-year. It could be a post-secondary experience. It could be military, something that prepares a student for something beyond high school. And I can't think of a better way of preparing students than the opportunities of our skill centers. We happen to be one, and we are the host center for 8 different districts. 2, 4, 6, 8. I got it right this year. We prepare students with advanced training, employment preparation, and experience in a career field. These courses are offered at our member districts that are listed there on the slide. So yes, we do have high school students that do move to other districts and take programs there. And we also have students from other districts that take programs through our center host at Lake Washington Technical Institute. During the high school session, the courses are offered between June 26th and July 13th, 7 hours a day. They are offered in the districts that are listed there, reminding you that this is state funded and students are not paying tuition for this. I'm double checking with our director to make sure that was accurate. Lake Washington has about 50% of the participation, and when you look at the enrollment numbers, we continue to be very strong with 510 of those 1,020 students. Many different programs offered across the consortium. I'm not going to name all of those, but as you can see, and I mentioned just a moment ago, a student could access any one of the 8 districts. During the summer, it's 6 that have programs that are going on, and we have students likewise from other districts joining us. Now it's time for Core Academic Summer School, and I'm going to start with the story that I said a moment ago. We did a program review. When I say we, it was Heather Sanchez who did the work of the program review, and as a result of that, we have 10 new enrichment and acceleration courses that were offered this summer. We saw a 70% enrollment increase over 2017. We had 681 students participating this year. Last year, 201 students. That's pretty phenomenal. We also want to take a moment to thank our Lake Washington Schools Foundation. Larry Wright, the executive director, approached us early on in the year and asked if there was some way they could help remove barriers and obstacles from students, for students who may not even apply for free or reduced lunch, but are having a difficult time taking a summer school course. One of the first students to access this application process, this scholarship, was actually a homeless student who approached and worked with Heather and is one of our students that went through the DigiPen program this summer. We originally were hoping for, I want to say, 12,000 was the original amount, is what we were shooting for? 30 scholarships for $12,000. They ended up, I don't say we, as the foundation raised $20,000, over 20, and provided for 81 full tuition scholarships, which again represents removing barriers from students who otherwise would not have been able to have gone to summer school. Yes.
Sorry, before you leave that slide, I always love to see numbers where it's like, yeah, that's a trend I believe in. You need to take the how to impress people with statistics, because you're right, 70% of the people you have is growth over last year, but technically you've got 240% growth relative to the 200 students you had last year. So, yeah. Anyway, just wanted to point out, it's a lot more impressive than 70%, believe it or not.
Thanks, Chris, for that. We're going to revise this slide so it's even more powerful afterwards. For the record, truly.
Quick question, the
Yes.
ability to pay for the tuition is great, and Lord, the foundation does such a great job on various things like this that it's never ceases to amaze me. Are there other barriers that might be out there that would have made this number pale in comparison? Are there some transportation barriers? Are there anything else that we need to address that we can, again, team up with the foundation or team up with someone to make even a lower barrier, if you will?
Right.
Tuition I could see as being the primary, but I could also see being able to get there.
Right.
And so are there some, are those barriers, can we address them yet?
I'm going to ask Heather to address that because she's eager to. And Heather, we're going to use a mic for that because, as Chris pointed out, we're being broadcast.
So there were a couple of other things that we added this year that are not reflected in the slide. And so we added bus routes from all of the high schools to Lake Washington High School. So previously we had transportation and there was no fee for the transportation, but we would have a pickup at, say, Redmond High School and go to Lake Washington High School. And this summer we had routes coming from Juanita, which brought in a lot more kids from the Juanita learning community, and also East Lake High School, which also helped a lot. The other thing that we did, and we'll see it when we get to the secondary numbers, was Kelly Pease, her department, and my department, and Matt Gillingham with counselors, we partnered this spring to go out and spend some time with our high school counselors, our secondary counselors, to help them get kids in and have them register right there on the spot with a laptop open for summer school. which helped a lot. And then for credit recovery, students who are credit deficient, as Mike mentioned, some students really benefit from an online or a blended learning environment, and for some students, they just need more of a brick and mortar, in-seat type of model, right? So we asked the schools, Kelly's team asked the school, these kids are all credit deficient, which model do you think they would benefit from? And so then what we did, if the school told us the student will benefit from really more of a brick and mortar, we enrolled them in core, and then we're using LAP dollars to pay that tuition for them. So that's a first too. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. I'm going to take you through each of the programs and at each of the levels and do a very high-level summary. Starting with elementary, this is really done to reinforce reading, writing, and math skills where students need just a little extra boost to be ready for the next grade. They also do some work in art and PE to make it sort of fun as well, and that's been part of the program for a while, and it's tuition-based. The session runs for 20 days between July 6th and August 2nd. It's a half day. You can see the location. All of the programs at the elementary are at Rush Elementary. The tuition is listed there, including reduced and free. And we went from 46 students to 78 students this past year. The expansion that I referenced from the program review is the addition of 2 sessions of drama camp, 2 sessions of STEM camp, and 2 sessions of an integrated art and writing camp. And if I were sitting in your seats, I'd be wondering why those particular ones. Again, this is part of the program review. Heather had surveyed our students and our parents and had gotten that information to find out what are the areas of highest interest, and that was the top 3 that came out where people indicated an interest, and that was what drove the decision to run those. Again, mentioning that if money was an obstacle, there were those need-based scholarships which were offered through the foundation. These elementary enrichment programs had 10 sessions through 2 different periods of time, either July 6th through the 19th or July 20th, August 2nd, or both, again, the half day. And you could see that 143 students participated this year in those programs. And we're expecting that number is going to grow, probably by 400%. Then we look at our secondary programs. Our middle school courses are, again, similar to elementary in helping kids get some additional skill and practice in literacy and math for the grade level they just completed. In high school, students can retake a course, as Heather was pointing out, to either earn credit for credit they did not earn during the school year, or they can improve their grade. If they're trying to get a better grade than the course grade that they got, they can do that as well. These 2 are tuition-based programs. In middle school, you could see that there's, similar to high school, 20-day sessions, the range, the time of the day. They're slightly different between middle and high school, but pretty close. The costs are listed there. Again, you see the enrollment growth went from 155 to 249 students. Here in the expansion of the programs, this is exciting as well. Again, this was something that I know that we've had some conversation and study sessions about what happens when a student accelerates in middle school and goes to algebra and misses content. I'm looking to you, Siri, because we've had this conversation many times about providing them that extra stitch, that extra boost to be able to be ready for algebra when they are basically jumping over a whole grade level of content. Again, that's the Algebra Booster. For the first time, we offered that for students who have already been identified at the middle level for being able to take algebra. They have met all the requirements, and this was a voluntary program that they did during the summer. We also offered a number of DigiPen courses that are listed there. This also was the first time that if a student wanted to knock off, if you will, 1 or 2 course credits by taking algebra and accelerating their progression as a 9th grader, being an incoming 9th grader, just leaving 8th grade, or beyond 9th grade, they could take algebra or geometry for credit as credit bearing and actually meet a portion of their graduation requirements. This is the first time we've offered that, not for students who failed, but for students who wanted to start working on their accelerated pathway so that they could then go even further in math when they are taking courses this September. So we're pretty excited about that. This is really a discussion we've had for a number of years, and now it's really coming into fruition, and that's, again, I want to thank Heather for her work with that. There were 2 sessions for the Algebra Booster. This year we had 55 students participating in that. In DigiPen, at the middle level, we had 101 students who were participating. Do I have that right? And that wasn't available last year, so that's a pretty incredible number. At the high school, we had 35 students who chose to do that. It was a 20-day session, spanned July 6th to the 2nd. How do students earn credit? They're in summer school for a big portion of the day, from 7:30 to 2:30. That's a long chunk of time, but you're realizing they're involved in a credit-bearing course, earning a credit of algebra or a credit of geometry. Finally, we thought we'd end with what we're really proud of. This is growing. Last year, I believe there were 4 students. This year, there were 11 students. Did I have that right? These are our graduates with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get them through, of a lot of people helping them to make it to the finish line. Again, I started with our district vision, and here it is in action, future ready, graduating from our high schools. And with that, I'll entertain some questions. Mark.
I would like to encourage anyone who hasn't been able to go to one of these summer school graduations to go. I was able to go to the first one. If it wasn't for a bad battery, I'd have been in the second one too. But it's emotionally and gratification-wise, you've never attended a ceremony that was more meaningful to a family, to a student, than going to one of these. It pales the major one, and God knows how important it is to have the regular graduations, but these kids and their families are so invested in this that it just goes beyond words. It's great, and anyone who can make it the next year, and God willing, my batteries are, my car died that night. But it's just great. Please, anyone, in fact, I would encourage anyone in the audience, for that matter, the audience at home, if you want to see a really great educational experience, come to this.
I just want to thank everybody that has worked on summer programs. I'd like to especially thank Karen Hay for giving me a personal tour of WANIC, and I got to see the dental lab and the health labs, and it's state-of-the-art facilities. I mean, I do work for Children's Hospital. I'm around a lot of medical equipment, and the setup that you have there is state-of-the-art. It is cutting-edge technology, and we're so fortunate to have that right here in our very own district. So thank you all for all of your effort on summer school, and thanks for the tour.
Any other questions? I would like to say thank you, and I would echo Director Sage's comments about the work that has gone into this. It's absolutely fabulous to see the changes that have come through here. It's exciting, the Algebra Booster, you're right. I mean, I knew many families that were going outside in which to provide it. The fact that we're now providing it is fabulous. I'd be intrigued to see how they do in algebra going forward, so that next step of finding out how they track through the system would be great. The other question that I would just have as you look at this, I know you're dealing with funding through the foundation, is, you know, how much more can we decrease the tuition costs, especially for any credit-bearing courses, and providing those opportunities, just especially as our income is definitely an issue, cost of living is definitely higher. The more we can do that, I'd encourage it, because these opportunity for WANIC, the opportunity for DigiPen, these are great cost savings, and even to bring that down further would be fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are on to the second one.
As we reviewed that, I was really encouraged to see that blend of both the opportunity to recoup credits as well as that proactive opportunity. I think students are seeking more and more to then be able to make other choices with their schedules for that following year. So that was great to see, and we appreciate that. Second up tonight, Dr. Holman is going to introduce Matt Gillingham and our report on athletics and activities.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, our report on athletics and activities. We know that, big picture, that all of these program reports, it's really in service of our students meeting our academic goals for them. The success goals, our end results 2 and 3, that's really how we monitor and focus on this, and these are the means for which we meet those ends. And so tonight, looking at athletics and activities, really focuses on EL6, consider the reasonable balance between the instructional needs and the extracurricular obligations of students. And so in that, let me introduce Director Matt Gillingham. He's Director Student Services. There's a team of 3, Matt, a specialist, and an administrative assistant that run student services. And one of those areas is athletics and activities. And I'll hand it over to him.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Holman. Thank you, Board. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to get to talk about our athletics and activities programs. The interscholastic activities we offer at the secondary level, at the middle schools and high schools. And there's a strong connection between students' connection to school and their performance in school and their participation in extracurricular activities. And so I want to highlight some of the things that we're doing and some of the work that we've been doing to try to expand those opportunities. Briefly just highlighting that there is a body of research that establishes a correlation between participation in athletics and academic performance, and so that there are positive associations between the two, which is one of the reasons why we offer athletics in schools, in addition to the connection to the school community and an opportunity to teach and have students model interdisciplinary skills and attributes. At the high school level, we have a considerable number of offerings, and all of our offerings are in the season that aligns with the WIA season. Last year, I was really excited to be able to launch girls slow pitch softball, so we added that in the fall. And we correspondingly saw a slight increase in girls' participation. We had almost 130 girls, more girls participate in athletics last year over the previous year. Under Title IX, what we're looking at when we look at our athletic participation is proportionality. So we look at the school's enrollment in terms of gender, so male and female, and we look at how that compares to the enrollment in athletic opportunities. So as you can see at the high school level, we do not have proportionality. We have fewer girls participating in athletics as compared to their percentage as the student population. We did, however, increase by 2%. So last year, we had 42% of our athletes were female, and this year 44% of our athletes were female. We still need to create more opportunities for our girls at the high school to participate in athletics, and that's an area that we're very much focused on. As I mentioned, last year we added slow pitch softball, and it was wonderful. This year, the WIA recognized slow pitch softball as a fall sport and are beginning a state championship starting next year. So the timing was definitely right for us to get in and provide that opportunity for our girls, and it was really fun to watch the games last year. We brought some girls in that had not participated in athletics before, and so it was a great opportunity for us to try to expand our offerings. We've also focused and made it a point of emphasis with our high school athletic directors to focus on recruitment. And talking with them about their outreach activities and how do we build the athletic programs that we have for our girls so that they're healthy and that they're thriving. And then we've talked before, and in board reports before, have talked about athletic equity committees. So we've established a system where at each building level, there's a committee made up of community members, staff, and students who review participation data, review feedback from students and coaches about everything from scheduling to equipment, so that we can ensure that from a Title IX, from a gender equity standpoint, that we're offering and running programs that are equitable. And I'm really proud of the work that we're doing there. At the middle level, oh, yes.
Sorry, just a quick question. When you're talking about enrollment and participation, is that on the basis of one student gets counted once?
That's an excellent question. So actually, a three-sport athlete, so we have 3 sports at the high school level, or 3 seasons, a 3-sport athlete would count 3 times. So the way that we count it for Title IX is that, that you're looking at participants in a given season.
I don't see it in the upcoming slides, so next time we see these data, I'd love to see it broken up by 1, 2, and 3 season athletes by gender. Anyway, thanks.
Quick question, Matt.
Yes.
The increase from 42 to 44, was the slow pitch softball proportionally responsible, or?
It would have been, yeah, I don't have the exact breakdown by, I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers. Given that we added, or we had 130 more female participants, I know that we did not have 130 slow pitch softball players. So, so it made up a portion of that, but as I mentioned, we also focused on increasing our recruiting efforts as well. So that would have accounted for some of it as well.
For all those to come from softball, it had been one hell of a bullpen. So.
Yeah. At the middle level, 2 years ago, we started a review of the athletics program. We had not done that since we moved from having junior highs to middle schools. And our middle school administrators were reporting some issues with, one, we wanted to revisit the program design so that we can ensure that we were offering a high quality experience to our middle school students. We've had a significant increase in transportation costs. And that also, our middle school athletic programs were very popular, and we were actually running into capacity issues. More students middle school athletics are no cuts, and we had more students turning out than we, for some of our schools, had space. So those were some interesting challenges that we worked with the committee over a couple of years to address. That committee made some recommendations we adopted last year. One of the things was to shift some of our seasons to try to create a larger opportunity for the intramural offering in January. And then we standardized the number of competitions. Our students had actually indicated an interest in having more practice opportunity than competitions. And so we reduced our number of competitions, which alleviated some of the pressure from a transportation cost, and it aligned with the student interest, so it was a win-win. This year, the recommendations, the committee continued to work because, as you'll see in a moment, our boys are the underrepresented gender at the middle level. And so we needed to look for ways to create opportunities for our boys, and yet also that needed to be aligned with some of the constraints or some of the challenges that the committee was working with. We, every 3 years, we survey our secondary students. There's OSPI has an athletic interest survey, and so we did that this year. And our boys, soccer was unsurprisingly, a very popular choice. So we are adding soccer in season 2, which is going to be November and December. And then we also reconfigured our athletic seasons to balance, try to balance our participation numbers to address some of the issues I mentioned there above. So our athletic offerings for this year will look where we'll have boys basketball and tennis in season 1 and boys and girls cross country in that season, girls badminton and boys soccer in season 2, girls basketball and then boys and girls wrestling in season 3, girls volleyball and girls tennis in season 4, along with boys and girls track and field. And I'm just going to point out that our court sports, we intentionally place the girls' court sports and the boys' court sports in the same season with each other, because that's where we're having capacity issues. For example, we'll have hundreds of kids turn out for tennis at schools that have 3 tennis courts. And so to be able to meet some of that interest by providing another court sport, the committee felt that that would allow us to kind of balance our participation.
Matt, I have a question.
Yes.
For the middle school level, there's no, or maybe it just falls into a different category or chart, no baseball, no football?
There's no baseball and football. The baseball and football were eliminated when we reconfigured from a junior high to a middle school. Softball also was offered at the junior high level, and that was also eliminated at that time.
In the survey that WIA does, is there a I don't know, is it X number of sports that are listed? Is there a possibility of saying, of students saying, look, because I know lacrosse had been a question for a while, is that a possibility of even answering that, or is that not even on the list?
Yeah, the list is actually, the list is exhaustive. It actually is it's based on a collegiate list of any collegiate sport.
Okay.
So it also includes lacrosse. It also includes skiing and rifling, and then there's of course the opportunity for students to write in, but it is a very lengthy list of swimming and diving, competitive gymnastics, dance.
Okay.
So
okay.
we're able to really get a sense of what students are interested in.
So we saw in this survey that the interest in football and baseball at the middle school level was not there?
Their football was one of the tops. It did not eclipse soccer. Soccer was the highest choice. Football, flag football were other popular sports, along with, I believe, swimming and diving. Here's the athletic opportunities at the middle level. And you can see where our boys are underrepresented, and we need to create, across the district, we need to create 653 opportunities to increase proportionality. Under Title IX, we have multiple ways to meet the interest of trying to create opportunities. Ideally, that's by having proportional athletic opportunities. But adding sports is that meet the interests of the underrepresented gender is the second part of that test, and that's the approach that we're doing to try to get ourselves up to the first part of the test, which is proportionality. We did not see really an increase in boys' participation last year, but of course the program changes that I mentioned earlier didn't go into place. So we'll look at this year to see if we have kind of the same effect that we had by adding girls softball last year at the high school.
Quick question, trend-wise, I know this is Chris's usual bailiwick, but I'll ask it. Do we is this proportionality changed over the last 40 years, 5 years?
No, I went back and looked at some of the data that we've been tracking using the same methodology, and for the middle school, it's remained fairly static of just a percentage point here or there. So we'll really be looking to see if, to what extent this changes with adding a boys' sport next year.
Yeah, I was just looking at, we're on 15. If you just flip back 2 slides. If you look at the Redmond participation, they were doing something right because they had proportionality 2 years ago. And now they're 100 boys short. So whatever changes we made in the last 2 years are going the wrong direction at that school in particular. I mean, I know it's small numbers, but it's still something where going from 450 to 350, 100 boys opted out of our sports programs at Redmond Middle School. The total enrollment hasn't changed. It's gone up a little bit. So anyway, I'm very interested in learning more about how these numbers are calculated. I mean, how many students are being counted. At the middle school level, I don't know. I mean, what kills me about Title IX is that it doesn't count. We've got the select sports-crazy kids who, of course, they're not playing sports for the middle school. They're off on the road for their soccer, their baseball, or in Kirkland, their Kirkland's baseball and softball, but now they've got lacrosse, all these other things. I know that the rules be the rules, but I would like more education as to exactly how they get to proportionality.
Okay.
How close does it have to be before we're good enough? And how steady does that have to be across year to year?
Yeah.
So
I think it'll be probably one of those things that, I mean, we have an obligation every year to be monitoring and paying attention to it. We do see some variability at a school level from year to year, which is one of the reasons why we look at a district level to be able to kind of gather the trends.
yeah.
It would be interesting to find out, to survey those 100 boys, if you will, that dropped out at Redmond Middle. Why?
Well, it's just 100 missing boys. The problem is we don't know who didn't sign up.
Well, I understand. The question is, some of them may moved. I realize that, but
Yeah.
I think the big question, if I can paraphrase through, is sort of saying there seems to be some disparities between the schools in and of themselves as
Yes.
well. And then the whole process of doing this, how do we account for community opportunities that our students have while still complying? The spirit of Title IX
Yes.
is we offer equal opportunities. And so how do we ensure that that's in place as you're speaking to while maintaining those? So I think just understanding some of that is what's being looked for.
Okay. Just in summary, for our athletics program, our girls are the underrepresented gender, and we have added a sport, and we'll continue to monitor participation. And at the middle level, our boys are the underrepresented gender, and we're creating new opportunities for them. Some of our next steps with our athletic program is we are continuing to look at expanding interscholastic opportunities as needed, as well as based on student interest. We are also going to be exploring unified sports offerings and looking at developing a process for collecting and analyzing student participation data beyond school, sport, and gender, which is the data that we're currently collecting. So we're looking to do a deeper dive in understanding kind of our student interests and who's participating, so that we can kind of take that next turn of the wheel with athletics.
Could I just get that? What is unified sports offerings?
So unified sports offering is where you have it's sports programs that are for students of all abilities to participate. The Seattle School District has unified sports at several of its high schools, and so it's something that's of interest for us to begin looking at and asking a question of what would that look like here.
So it sounds like those last 2 points are really working with equity and trying to work beyond gender as the equity, but across the board of all different components.
Yeah, I think the work
Fabulous.
we've done with gender equity over the past couple of years has kind of created a framework for us to continue to expand from.
That's great. Any other questions?
I would just say that last bullet, I think, speaks to some of your questions about how those numbers are broken out. Part of it is how we've been able to track the data over time and how we think we can moving forward. That I think gives us more of the why. Is it just fewer students choosing to participate? Is it a particular timing? Is it other things other than just sheer numbers of kids? And I think that will help us to kind of untangle a little bit more of the whys behind some of the participation.
the numbers kind of speak to me also. The 100, at least that one school, that's basically a football and a baseball team. Or two.
I'll briefly touch on extracurricular activities. Similar to athletics, they're an integral part of the school community. They create opportunities for connections and a way for many students to kind of expand upon their interests and continue learning. At the secondary level, our activities are student initiated. So under policy IGDA, students have a process for initiating a club, and so that's detailed up above as to how they do that. So at our schools, there is some turnover year to year between what clubs or activities are offered or participating because student interests can change. So it's a dynamic process. That said, we do see every year when I go and look to see what clubs are being offered at our schools, you see these some common clubs, everything from drama and honor society to Latinos Unidos, GSA programs, yoga clubs. And so there's a variety of clubs that are being offered at all of our schools. At the middle school, similarly, there's a variety of clubs, robotics clubs, technology, environmental clubs that are being offered. And again, these are based on student interests. And one of the ways that we look to see if we're meeting some of that interest, every 2 years we participate in a Healthy Youth Survey. So that last participation was in 2016. So we'll actually be surveying our students again this fall. And one of the key questions here is looking at, do our students tell us that there's opportunities for student involvement? Statewide, that number is very high, but we are exceeding that number, and where the vast majority of our students are saying that they have opportunities to participate.
May I ask a question about the advisors?
Yes.
Do we compensate advisors for taking on that advisory role?
Going back to some of the club advisors have actual stipends that are in the schedule because they have additional responsibilities for that. So, for example, like Honor Society, there's a lot of responsibilities that advisor has. Kind of create some administrative responsibilities in managing that. Whereas other clubs, it is really the students are asking for a place where they can stay, they can be supervised. And so when teachers are essentially opening up their classrooms and saying that they'll supervise them while they're continuing to do some of their other work. So and those positions are not stipended.
So if we get feedback from advisors that they're putting in lots and lots of hours, is there any kind of a process that we have to determine who as an advisor is given a stipend? Or I'm hearing some feedback, so I'm just wondering, because I would hate to see some of these clubs and activities not continue, and if it is an issue of funding a stipend, that'd be something we could work on.
I would ask Dr. Holman to come. There are typically district-recognized clubs, and then there are student interest-based clubs.
So at our secondary schools, there are stipends that are identified for specific things, and then there's stipends that on an annual basis, the school leadership team identifies what those stipends are going to be used for. And so I would just say that advisor should go to their principal, provide that feedback around, their experience, so that as they're making those determinations, that can be considered.
And actually, extending that question, if boosters or LWSF wanted to support advisor stipends, is that allowable? I mean, if we can shake loose extra dollars externally, can we bring them in and use them for advisor stipends?
So our PTSA, I know, will donate funds to schools to be used for stipends for activities and the sort.
Right, thanks.
So I think that's the end of the presentation, unless there's other questions.
No further questions? Thank you.
Questions? Well, thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate your time. It's great to see the work that's being done, especially because all that extracurricular is part of Ends Results 3, which is looking at our student profile. So that's fabulous. So our next step up on the agenda is the superintendent report. So Dr. Stephen.
My very first superintendent report. First of all, I want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to be the superintendent in such a wonderful school district. And I'm not just saying that, I'm already finding out that this is everything I had hoped it would be and thought it would be, and even more. So it's an exciting place to be. There are a lot of people doing a lot of great work for students, and I've gotten in on just the kind of the end of this last year as we celebrated summer school graduates and are just beginning now to pick up steam into this next school year. So it feels very good to have a board meeting with all of you and begin learning the processes of the board, and at the same time learning what's happening currently in our district as well as what's coming up. So on that note, things that are coming up are some new buildings that will be opening. We are on track, as far as we know at this point, for opening those buildings, which is always great when we have a lot of students and community members who are coming in the door, we hope, on that first day. And so we'll continue to provide updates as we move closer and closer to the start of school. Another big change that we know that is coming is a change in school start times and end times. And so we are looking at, have we done everything we can possibly think to do to help people remember what those new times are for both staff and students, to put it out there in as many different ways as we can think of, with signage and information blasts, if you will, infographics, having clear places to land on the website, so that if you were here last year, you might be aware of that information, and if you are brand new to the district, you can also find that information quickly and easily. So those are some of the big things coming up. I also will be presenting you very soon with a final draft of my transition plan, which serves as a roadmap to what this year looks like, with some of those activities already underway, in meeting with different community members and organizations and district and building leaders, and all of the things that go into this first year of really getting a good solid start with building relationships and being able to then vision with you the future of the Lake Washington School District. So a lot ahead, and I'm enjoying learning. There is a lot to learn, but it's been a great process so far. I just entertained my first out-of-town guest this weekend, and they kept saying they felt like they were on vacation. And I said, I know it's a great place. And so there's also a lot of wonderful things to do in the community. We've tried to take advantage of as many of those things as we can in between undoing boxes and establishing our home, which I hope to be done with very, very soon. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to staff for making me feel so welcome during these first almost 2 weeks. And we look forward to a great year ahead.
All right, thank you very much, and welcome. So our next item up is the legislative update. So Eric, do you have anything you'd like to report?
I do. So WASDA has disseminated its legislative assembly proposals for the upcoming legislative assembly on September 22nd is when the assembly is. There are 100 and, oh, I just closed it. There are about 130 proposals. I don't have the exact number because I lost it. Anyway, we will call it 130. At our next study session, that's correct, the board will be discussing and prioritizing our positions for me to then take to the assembly. I will be sending something out tomorrow to the board with a proposal for us to work off of, given that there are so many.
It won't be 130 long.
No, it will not. I will limit 15 with some other maybe tertiary ones. Then but I will provide the list of all of them so that we can. No, I think it's worth doing.
All right.
And I'll make sure that we have for that WASDA does a wonderful job of putting together materials. There are too many, but it's wonderful. So I've set aside time tomorrow to take care of that, and I will be sending an email to the board after consulting with you, Siri, if that's okay.
Dumb question. Is this a long or a short session? I can never remember.
I can never remember though.
It's a long.
It's long.
Because we just did the supplemental
Washington
budget,
State
so
later.
it'll be moving into a long session this time around. So it is, if you have that time, the legislative handbook that he spoke to is divided into sections around topic areas. So it'd be beneficial to sort of get an idea of the big categories of sort of how they've bucketed these. They've done a lot of work at really streamlining these resolutions. And it gives a good overlay of the state of sort of where all the school districts are looking at those issues. There are some that we would definitely align with and some we would probably disagree with. At that assembly, that's when you have the opportunity to make amendments and to change things and to really help set that agenda going forward. And it's a big work of the entire school district association, so it is very valuable. I think Eric is planning to attend.
Yeah.
I'm attending.
too?
I'd recommend anybody who could also attend. I don't know if you'd be able to.
It's in Spokane.
That'd be fabulous.
Yeah, Spokane, the 21st through 22nd, essentially.
But it is really a very democratic process, that it is everybody making amendments and shifting emotions, and you do learn a lot in regards to the entire legislative priorities throughout our state. So well worth it. Any questions on that? That's for next week, so on Monday. Okay? So from there, the question is there any board follow-up on anything we've done, anything to go through with? All right. Any future agenda items? We had several that came out of the work session that we'll be working with. Okay, the debrief will be one of those agenda items that we will be shifting, so we will take care of that. Any board member comments?
Welcome, Dr. Stavum.
Any other comments? All right, well, then from there, I'll just quickly review our upcoming board meeting schedule. It's nice to have it shorter than it used to be. On August 20th at 5 p.m., we'll have a study session on legislative priorities. On September 17th at 5 p.m., we'll have a board reception with new administrators, moving into a study session on facility levy planning. And at 7 p.m., that will be the board meeting. Then at the end of that month, on the 24th, we'll have a study session looking at the equity efforts and policies. And with that, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director La Liberty that we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.